like Scooby-Doo. It was just like, it was very Saturday morning cartoon, and finally, after many a moon, they came back to ADV and they're like, look, we know this is bad. You can do whatever you want with this show, and we don't care. And so that's all you had to tell us. And so we made up these rules, but we rewrote the show ourselves. The rules were you couldn't change the names of any of the ghosts because they're all based on Japanese and Chinese ghost legends. You couldn't change any of the names of the characters, except my character who was Rio, which was obviously supposed to be Leo. And you couldn't change the basic plot, but other than that, you could do whatever you want. So we got to have fun with like George Bush and all these, Lindsay Lohan and like all these people that like just really deserved a little zing. We even made fun of each other. We make fun of Vic and Chris and myself and Monica and Tiffany and Hillary. I mean, we all make fun of each other, make fun of the directors at ADV. Well, there's one scene where I'm watching a garage being imploded, and it reminded me of the story that Kristen Slater tells in Heathers. And it was this weird, it was like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, and I go, let me try something. I was like, this reminds me of that scene in Heathers. Remember when Kristen Slater had a career? And that became this joke that never died the rest of the show. Everybody, that's worse than Kristen Slater's career. And it just never stopped. Later in the show, when I was watching people get on the boat that takes them to cross the river Styx, we're like, it's Walter Cronkite, Kurt Cobain, Kristen Slater's career. That joke never ended. It's so funny. So I joking I was responsible for that joke, and there's a really, really cool set of jokes about Sean Young. And Chris Kaysen, who I love to death, who's one of the Funimation actors, found this great picture of Sean Young nude in a fur coat, like covering herself, and she's going. And he put it on my Facebook wall, and it says, "You will be hearing from my attorneys." And it's really funny. So we had so much fun with that. And here's the funny thing: when Monica and I premiered that at Otakon that year, we got booed. It's the first time I've ever been booed at a convention. And we were really nervous because they're like, "How dare you sacrilegiously change epic anime like Ghost Stories in high school?" And I was myself. I'm like, "I dare you to watch it. I dare you to watch the whole thing and I'll fall asleep. It's awful. It's horrible. It's not art. It's awful." The funny thing is that dub got such a cult following, we beat Full Metal Alchemist for Dub of the Year in Anime Insider. That says a lot for bad jokes and making fun of Kristen Slater and stuff. But yeah, I loved it. Yeah, in the middle.
Okay, a couple things. One, have you heard of a game called Conker's Bad Fur Day?
No.
Have you heard of The Great Mighty Pooh?
Wait, have I heard of what?
The Great Mighty Pooh.
Oh yeah, okay, I've heard of Mighty Boo, yeah.
Could you sing his song?
No, I'm not gonna sing. I'm not gonna even sing anything from Beck. No, I don't. No, sorry. Yeah, that's like when I was in England, they were wanting me to do Monty Python lines. I'm like, no, get Monty Python to do Monty Python lines. Yeah, with the horns, yes, that was the easy way to get my attention.
I just wanted to know what was the most challenging thing you had to do script writing for ADR work?
That's good. That's a really cool question because, being the guy that was a dub hater, being a part of that process is really eye-opening. I used to be that little kid that would sit and watch a dub with the subtitles on and pick out inconsistencies. Like, they said "the" right there. They said "the" instead of. Like, the weird thing is, adaptive script writing is so hard. What you start off with is a raw translation, which has all the weird Englishy stuff and all the things that don't make sense culturally. And then you first time code it so that you get start and stop times of when every single person speaks, which is very monotonous and very time consuming. And then when you actually get down to doing the script writing, what you're doing is you're taking what's written in Japanese, you're watching this one thing over and over and over, and you're coming up with something that is as accurate a retelling of whatever the words are that fits in the holes, that fits in the mouth flaps. Mike McFarlane and I used to jokingly call it data entry acting, because you're only allowed to act as long as the mouth is moving. So the toughest, I think, was the episode of Gantz that I wrote had a lot of very heavy vulgarity in it, but translated in Japanese, it didn't sound bad. Like when I was looking at the raw translation, I was like, oh, it's pretty tame considering what's about to happen. And I actually had to work with the translator, the raw translator, and she goes, no, 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 this should be very vulgar. This should, and it's so weird for somebody to tell me to get dirtier, because I'm like, usually they're like, dial it back. And so I had to, oh, I broke it for a second. I had to come up with, the challenge was to come up with creatively gross ways to say certain things, which normally I would welcome that. I'm like, yeah, let's say it this way. It's like, you know, all the horrible shocker, you know, things that people make up. That's what I would think it would be like. When I actually had to sit down and do it for work, I was like, oh. And everything I came up with sounded like a 5th grader cursing. And so I was like, so I actually had to call some friends, and I was like, and it was really horrible. I'm not gonna say what it is, because that'll be the quote that ends up on the internet, but I'm like, all right, so say, I'm calling my like punk rock friends, I'm like, okay, say you're about to do this, would you say this or this? And they're like, what? I'm like, no, this is just in a show. And they're like, no, wait, what did you just say? Because Gantz has got a lot of violence, a lot of, you know, sex and sexual violence and whatever, so that's the most challenging thing, is to be able to write something that is believable, that goes along with that translation, and also, I don't know, to do something. When we change things from a Western to a Western influence, like when we use curse words, English curse words, people get mad. They're like, oh, the Japanese would never say anything like that. But the idea is that we're telling a story, and it's got to be an accurate telling of the story. And so it's difficult to get that right. Taliesin Jaffe, the director of Hellsing, has one of my favorite quotes about a proper translation. He said, you will never get a 100% perfect translation. That's like saying you can describe what a cake tastes like. And I think that's a really great way to put it. So I think just the whole process is challenging, but keeping what you're doing relevant and real and true to what the story is supposed to be telling is sometimes its own task. Wow, that was a rambly answer. I'm sorry, I'm very rambly, by the way. Yes? Oh, man. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a scene that, this would spoil something, so I'm not going to tell you it, but I'm going to tell you roughly approximation of where blood is flying, so you're not going to know what's going on, but I actually do something that we're not supposed to do. I actually play 2 people in one scene in another, and if you've seen it, you'll know the scene I'm talking about, but there's one scene where a whole classroom full of children are showered with blood. And it's a very disturbing scene by itself. The poor actor that is at the head of the classroom while this is going on had just the worst job in the world with this scene. When it pans back, because you've got a whole classroom full of children covered in blood, there's one kid that's just going, and just throwing up this river of puke. I apparently make the vomit noise better than most actors, and so my brother actually said, he's like, so that's your thing, do you want to be the puking kid? And I was like, so I get to be this like throwing up kid in that scene, so listen carefully for me vomiting too, but that scene, the bloody classroom scene, is just unbelievable. I think what I'm actually going to show everybody is the umbrella. Yeah, so they'll get an idea, that'll give them an idea what the show is kind of about. So, if I show, I don't know, I probably shouldn't do that, but anyway, yeah.
What's that, just, you earlier you got one of the worst fangirl reactions. What is the best, like, most memorable fangirl / fanboy reaction you've ever seen?
Oh, they're all great to me. Man, I hate telling stories like this because it sounds like it's a very pat on the back thing, and it's not. One of the most important people in my life, somebody that I call like my little brother, his name's Cody. I met him when he was 12 years old. He was this little, hysterically cute, round, pimply-faced little kid who was just the nicest kid I ever met, and never met a stranger like, hey, you want to go do sumo? They had these blow-up sumo suits, and like, here I'm this grown man, and he goes, you want to go sumo wrestling with me? And I was like, I don't know, kid. And his mom was like, it's fine. Well, I met this kid, and I didn't know him. It was just like, I was at a small con, and I just ended up hanging out with this kid and his mom a lot. Thank you. This is my friend Steven, who went and got my camera because I'm supposed to get a picture of somebody's costume in a minute. So anyway, thank you. Anyway, I just hung out with them a lot that weekend. They're just really fun. This little bitty kid and his mom. I had a lot of fun hanging out with his mom. Really funny lady. She's a Fed, which is kind of cool. She works for the government, and we just had a really good time. I was in my hometown, Richmond, Virginia, which I didn't think much of. The newspaper wanted to do this little thing about, kid from Richmond does good, comes home, signs autographs, or some weird thing. And I had been real busy when the reporter wanted to talk to me earlier, and so I said, hey, this is when I still drank. Oh, well, I still drank. This is when I still smoked a lot, and I was like, hey, if you just want to meet me when the con's over, we'll meet in the bar and have a drink and a smoke and whatnot, and we'll talk. And so I was saying goodbye to everybody at the last day of the con. This is a really short version of this story, but I said goodbye to Cody and his mom, and I said goodbye to the tech guys, and I said goodbye to some of the staff, and I was leaving, and I was meeting the dude in the bar in the lobby, and it was a long hallway, so he could see me trying to get to him. I'm like, I'll be right there, and I was like saying goodbye. And when I got to the studio, he was crying, like he was not but like he was like wiping his face. There was something wrong with him, and I said, hey, are you okay? And he goes, who is that little kid and his mother? Who's the little kid you just said hi to? And I said, oh, that's my buddy Cody and his mom. And he's like, do you know them? I was like, I do now. I just met them this weekend. They're awesome. And he goes, can I just tell you what that little kid said to me? And I was like, if it's something you feel strongly about, yeah. It's like, I didn't know where this was going. And he said, it's really hard for me to tell this story because he's like the coolest kid. He's one of my best friends. He said that as Cody was walking by with his mom, he said, look, Mom, even all the famous people here like me. I don't understand why everybody at my school hates me. And I didn't, and before anybody thinks that this is a story to feel sorry about, he's now 6'4" and gorgeous. Has girls that chase him all over the place. And he's doing okay. I told him, he goes, when you tell that story, do they think I still look like that? I'm like, no, I tell him you're cute now. But because he had this environment to grow up, he's not even faced by girls now because he grew up as a cosplayer. So drama is his middle name, So now, a kid that normally would have had a really rough go of it, now even when girls get all he's like, okay, whatever, I'll just be over here playing my Animal Crossing, he just doesn't care. I tease him because he bought the new Pop-Tart edition DS that looks like the Animal Crossing DS that looks like a Pop-Tart, so I've been teasing him about his Pop-Tart DS all week. But those are the kinds of things that, there's no way to put into words how I feel about being a part of something that, to me, being here is such a big deal, and this community is such a big deal that I don't think it's me, I think it's all of us. Just being a part of that, being able to be around that every weekend is my favorite thing. Yeah, meeting people like Maya Sakamoto, I was or saying, that Nabashin is a good friend of mine. That's weird and cool in a fanboyish type of way, but just being a part of something that's way bigger than I can sometimes even understand is kind of really cool. And if I had to put, if there's one thing I love more than anything, it's that. It's this. Not necessarily even the anime, but the community that we have now. So, yeah, there's my Mother Teresa answer. But anyway, one day I'm going to come up with a shallow answer so I can get to the next question quicker. But yeah, in the back, yeah.
What was going through your mind after the first episode of Deadman Wonderland?
That I thought it was the coolest show I'd ever seen, and I hope that it was 50 episodes long. I like dark shows. That's why I'm so excited about Another. I like shows that have teeth, and that show didn't waste its time presenting itself to you. That show is and everybody's dead. It was really, really cool, and as a guy that watches a lot of anime, I knew immediately it was a show that I was going to watch more than once. I was like, oh man, there's so much going on in this show, I'll never take it in quickly. I'll have to see this a few times. So Yeah, I loved it from word go. It's weird. There were people that didn't want to work on the show, and I mean, I get that, but I'm an actor. Like, just because I'm a homicidal 16-year-old serial killer in a show doesn't mean that's who I am in real life. So I had no reservations about the cursing, the violence, the anything. Like, it's my job to be somebody I'm not. So I loved it. I jump at the opportunity. I like that he starts off a little weenie and ends up being kind of a righteous little guy. Like he finds a lot of courage and stuff. Most of the characters that I play that start off as weenies stay weenies the whole show. So I like that he actually, got kind of rad by the end of the show. Yeah.
What's like your favorite project that you've worked on so far?
It's tough to pick one project that's like the best of them all or the favorite of them all. It's tough. It's like saying who's your favorite daughter or whatever. Because I think, especially being like a super ADD guy, like the next thing is always the coolest. Like, yeah, okay, yeah.